Tell me if this feels familiar. You're at dinner with friends. Someone rolls up their sleeve. Someone else explains the meaning behind the symbol on their wrist. The table lights up. Stories, pain tolerance, healing journeys, self-expression. And then someone turns to you. And you? When are you getting one? You smile. You shake your head. Your skin is still untouched. And suddenly, you're the unusual one. Here's what nobody says out loud. Choosing not to get a tattoo in a culture obsessed with self-expression isn't neutral. It's psychological. It reflects personality structure, identity formation, deep behavioral patterns most people never stop to examine. Everyone debates what tattoos mean. Almost no one asks what it means to remain tattoo-free. And your blank skin? It may reveal more about your inner world than any ink ever could. You're not avoiding a trend. You're revealing a pattern. And the first pattern shows up in how you relate to time. First trait. You experience strong future self continuity. Most people treat their future self like a distant stranger. You don't. When you think about a permanent decision, your mind jumps forward. Not 5 minutes, not 5 months, decades. You imagine career shifts, value shifts, emotional shifts, identity evolution. To you, a tattoo isn't just a design, it's a message sent across time. And you hesitate, not because you're scared, because you think deeply. Research in behavioral psychology shows that people who discount the future less think long-term. They weigh irreversible decisions differently. They anticipate regret before it becomes experience. From the outside, that can look like overthinking. From the inside, it feels like responsibility. You're not indecisive. You're aware. But here's where it gets more complicated. Sometimes your relationship with the future isn't only thoughtful. Sometimes it's protective. And that's where this goes deeper. Second trait, you have a fluid identity orientation. Let me explain. In deep psychology, identity isn't fixed. It's constructed, revised, reconstructed over time. Some people define themselves through visible markers, symbols, aesthetics, affiliations. Others resist locking themselves in too quickly. You might be the second type. You don't want to freeze a version of yourself. A tattoo says, "This mattered enough to stay." But you experience yourself as evolving. Your character shifts. Your interests shift. Your emotional landscape shifts. Nothing feels final. And permanence? It feels heavy. Not because your life lacks meaning, but because it contains too much meaning to compress into one image. There's a concept called identity foreclosure, committing to a defined self before fully exploring alternatives. Many people do it unconsciously. You hesitate. You keep the narrative open. But here's the tension. Fluid identity can mean psychological flexibility. It can also mask avoidance of definition. The line is thin. Are you protecting openness or delaying commitment? You may not always know, and that uncertainty is part of your structure. But this isn't only about identity. There's a third layer most people never consider. It has nothing to do with aesthetics. It has everything to do with how you read the social world. Third trait, you're highly aware of perception management. Even now, when tattoos are mainstream, social psychology is clear. Impression management still matters. Humans constantly evaluate how they're seen, and you know that. Maybe you don't say it out loud, but you calculate. Professional perception, family reaction, cultural signals, context shifts. You understand that permanent body art changes the semiotics of how people interpret you, and once that signal is sent, control decreases. If you have strong self-monitoring tendencies, you probably prefer flexibility. Clothes change, hairstyles change, your tone adapts to the room. Ink doesn't. And for certain personalities, that lack of adjustability feels constraining. This isn't about conformity, it's about strategic autonomy. You want the option to recalibrate how you show up. Permanent symbols reduce that variable. But pause for a second, because here's the paradox. You avoid permanence to preserve freedom, yet in doing that, you make a statement. You become the person who chose not to mark their skin, and that choice carries meaning too. Let's go deeper. There's a quiet assumption in modern culture. Visible symbols equal depth. Tattoos equal story. Ink equals authenticity. But psychological meaning doesn't require visibility. Some of you operate from an intrinsic identity orientation. Your sense of self is internally anchored. You don't need external markers to validate internal narratives. You can love intensely without engraving it. You can remember powerfully without memorializing it. You can transform without documenting it. Your inner world feels sufficient. In personality psychology, this often correlates with a high internal locus of control. Your identity is regulated from within, not confirmed from outside. So when someone says, "This tattoo represents who I am," you might quietly think, "I already know who I am." Not superior, not dismissive, just inward. But let's challenge something uncomfortable. Sometimes staying tattoo-free is philosophical. Sometimes it's anxiety. Avoidance can disguise itself as discernment. Fear of regret can masquerade as wisdom. Concern about judgment can look like strategic thinking. Your psychological pattern isn't automatically virtuous. It's revealing. And that's what makes this fascinating. When nearly half a generation chooses body art, opting out becomes a signal. Non-participation is data. Social psychology shows that deviating from norms increases self-awareness. You become more conscious of your stance because it contrasts with the majority. You don't drift into being tattoo-free. You actively remain there. That requires clarity, or at least conviction. And conviction, even silent conviction, shapes character. So consider this. You sign contracts, you build relationships, you make irreversible life decisions. Yet the skin remains untouched. Why? Because those commitments exist in domains where you accept permanence. Your body, however, occupies symbolic territory. For some of you, it represents continuity. For others, neutrality. For others still, simplicity. There is a minimalist psychology at play. Not aesthetic minimalism, existential minimalism. You may prefer meaning without decoration, substance without symbol, memory without inscription. And in a culture that constantly urges visibility, post it, show it, brand it, your unmarked skin becomes quiet resistance. Not loud rebellion, quiet resistance. You do not need to display your internal world. You inhabit it. And here's the most interesting part. The absence of ink does not make you less expressive. It means your expression moves through different channels: conversation, thought, behavior, decision-making patterns. Your psychological architecture values flexibility, foresight, internal anchoring, and perception awareness. Whether these traits emerge from confidence or caution depends entirely on your personal narrative. And that is the point. The psychology of people who never get tattoos is not about being boring. It is about how you relate to permanence, identity, social perception, and self-definition. Your blank skin is not emptiness. It is a choice embedded in cognitive style and personality structure. Some of you will remain that way. Some of you may change. Either path reflects evolution. But if you have stayed tattoo-free until now, chances are your decision is not accidental. It is consistent with deeper psychological traits. And those traits shape far more than what appears, or does not appear, on your skin. Write in the comments what tattoos mean to you, a symbol or an unnecessary fixation of identity. And if you value deep psychology insights like this, subscribe so you don't miss the next video.